Way of the Pacifist is a beat 'em up, I guess? Now I say that because, as the play on words of the title hints at, you're a pacifist, for the most part. So you're not actually beating people up, but you're actually doing back-to-back parries and dodges as your main options to deal with those enemies. Cool little twist to the formula, so let's check it out. But first, this is combat overview. In this series I go over the general controls to the game's main mechanic or mechanics, who or what we use those tools on, and then seeing how it all comes together. Bit more in depth, but that's what we do. Alright, so we don't have jabs, launchers, walk-up grabs, or any of those basics you'd expect because we're pacifists. Again, for the most part. Now with that being said, there's not really much to talk about here. So yeah, we're just gonna move on to defenses. Y is our parry. You'll get ready and counter enemies' attacks. But it doesn't last forever. You'll drop the parry stance after some time, so yep, you gotta time it as you should. The cool thing is you have regular and perfect parries, which helps get better rankings and all that. But this means there's also late timed parries too. It won't be considered a full-on hit, but you'll take chip damage as punishment. So something to watch out for. A will have you dodge in place. This is useful to avoid all attacks, pretty much the same ones that our parry can deal with, except one, because our parries can't stop unblockable grabs. So that's where the dodge comes into play, to help get around that. Now another useful thing about dodge is the ability to catch projectiles. You can parry them, but dodging them instead will have you catch and return to sender. Now B will dash. Kinda looks like it'll be a second dodge, but there's no iframes on it. Just a good way to move around the fight, or to avoid hazards. And X is to shove. Not a punch, but just a little help to topple over tuckered out enemies. Because once you parry or dodge their attacks enough, you'll notice their blue meter above their head deplete with each failed attempt to hit you. And once empty, they get tired, and that's where we can follow up with a shove to finish them off. Onto our HUD, green is our health, and underneath is our level up XP bar. Nothing too crazy. Max level is 5, so you're just getting simple upgrades and fast, like those specials and max HP increase. Okay, now the main meter in the middle. So as you get parries and dodges, it'll help build up this bar. The more segments you fill, the more powerful of an attack you can do at the cost of the entire meter. So this can be something to hold onto to deal with a larger enemy, or if you want to do some high risk, high reward plays with it and try to fill it all the way up. It's kinda of a momentum thing. So the first pip is this powerful shove, pretty solid and great for special. Most times it'll one-shot enemies. 2 stocks will have you grab and slam the enemy down, creating a little crowd control shockwave nearby. And a full bar of 3 will bring out this black hole, bringing enemies on and off screen, doing massive damage. Now, specials do not cancel previous actions, so just like the game's been teaching us, all your actions need to be thought through, and you need to know those openings in enemies' patterns, or make your own by shoving them. And there's no iframes on specials either. So yeah, also, there's more. By misinputting a parry, either being too late or getting yourself hit, will reset it entirely. Or if you're too jumpy and press a button and whiff, this will also reset your built-up meter. So you need to be prepared for any attacks, but be deliberate with your actions at the same time. Just can't mash. And you gotta know what your enemies are gonna do and answer back correctly. When it comes to the enemies, this is where the bulk of the complexity comes into play. It's knowing all these unique enemies' attack patterns and timings, whether it's something you gotta parry, back to back, or dodge to catch the projectile, or shove to create an opening for yourself. Or even just them switching in and out on you for some mental juggling, having you be prepared for their unique timings on the spot while trying not to lose any meter. So you got your grunts, will do slow enough jabs. Then there's a purple version to toss out 2 fast jabs and then a delayed one. And there's blue one to do consistent fast jabs back to back. Big guys who start off with 2 jabs and a grab, which you gotta dodge. And these more red colored ones will do 2 grabs back to back, then a single punch. These ladies who will stay back and toss out a single blade can parry it, but if you dodge, you'll toss it back automatically. But then there's another enemy who'll toss 2 projectiles at an arc. Try and catch the first one, it'll get you clipped by the second one. So you gotta back-to-back parry those 2 instead. Or maybe they'll toss out a Molotov, which can be parried, but you can catch it from a perfect dodge. And then there's the shadow-figured enemies whose attacks will hit you no matter what. Perfect dodge or correctly timed parries, it doesn't matter, they'll just hit you. So you gotta avoid them till they're the only ones on screen, which then makes them vulnerable. I can keep going, but yeah, a lot of this going on. Get a single enemy type and they'll build off from that with different timings and patterns, which is shown by them getting multiple recolors. And bosses have their own gimmick to them as well, but just like most beat 'em ups, minions will be on screen to help them out. And that's the way of the passive fist. It leans heavily into parries and dodging every attack with this risk reward momentum building special meter, which makes the game very calculated parry 'em up. Borderline rhythm game since you mainly react to these enemies' distinct attack timings, try not to miss a beat, which gives medal rankings based off your performance. Then you get stage hazards tossed in there to mix it up, and it has a very customized experience too. Can make it easier if needed or more challenging, which is very fun. Can change enemies' damage output or how covered you want the screen to be, how strict or lenient parry timings to be considered successful, and lastly if you should find more health pickups or how many checkpoints are within a stage. Pretty different spin overall to beat 'em ups. Like I said, it's a parry 'em up. This and Shing are really changing up the norms a bit, and they do their own thing pretty damn well, making some fun and more experimental beat 'em ups that are for sure worth checking out.